Hey everybody, today I've got a 2003 SLK 320 with the V6 engine in it, and this one needs a water pump. So the water pump is right here, and you have the serpentine belt to take off. I think I'm going to go ahead and take the fan out just to make it easier for me to get in here. First thing we're going to do, we're going to drain the coolant on this, but before we do that, there is a choice of two water pumps, and I'll tell you the difference between the two water pumps. So here is the new water pump here. The alternator sits over here. Here's the main pulley. This is capped off. This is a water pump without the cooler. So if your car has a cooler, you're going to have a nipple here and a hose running into this. So this car has no cooler. Some cars might have a cooler. So there is the water pump. As you see, it's just a bunch of bolts to take out. It should not be that hard to do. So let's get in here and drain the coolant, and I'll pull the fan out. To pull the fan out, we're going to take these hoses and move them out of the way. And there's a clip here, an electrical connection here, and unplug it and slide this out to get it out of the way. But first, let me get underneath and drain the coolant on this car. All right, after you remove that shield, there's 4 bolts in it. The radiator drain cock is right here, that red one. You see it, that red one. You unscrew it counterclockwise, and then the coolant comes out of that nipple right there. So we'll get this draining, and we'll just take a look and see if there's anything else that plugs into the fan shroud. It doesn't look like, so the fan shroud should come right out. So let's get it draining. All right, so draining these, I actually happen to have a hose that comes down and in and then into the bucket, and I haven't made a mess. This is unbelievable. Even though this is about to fall off. Alrighty, I went ahead and took the upper radiator hose off and just pushed this off to the side, and then this hose here goes to the overflow tank there. I took that off to get it out of the way. Then you remove the electrical connection on the fan, and then there are 2 clips, and then this is the upper radiator hose holder. So now the fan should just lift on out. So there, that's out of the way. So now the next thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and loosen up these 4 10mm headed bolts before we take the belt off, and then we'll release the tensioner. And the tensioner, I happen to have the 2 pieces there to hold the tensioner. All right, like I said, we're going to loosen up these 10mm bolts here, and what I had to do is I had to use a screwdriver and then break them free. So I've already broken them free. So now we're going to get the belt off here. First thing you want to do is you want to draw a map of the belt, which I have not done yet. I still need to draw a map of the belt. But we're taking a 17mm socket, and I have this pin, and when you rotate this thing around the other way, there is a hole in the tensioner that you can slide this pin into, which I can't find. But you rotate the tensioner this way to get the belt off, and then there's a hole down there to put this pin in, and I can't remember exactly where it is. I think it's on this side. Let me see if I can get it. Okay, I can't seem to get it, so let me get it and I'll come back and show you. All right, so I have the pin installed. It's right there in the center of the screen next to the nut. I actually had to use the original one that came with the tensioner that I saved. So now you can pin the tensioner back, and as you see, the belt's nice and loose. So we'll go ahead and pop the belt off and pull this pulley off, and we'll start taking the bolts off for the water pump. You're also going to have to remove this pulley. This pulley has a Torx headed bolt in here. You have to pull this cover off. It's really easy. You just take your screwdriver and you get it in there and you pop it off, and then there's that. That's an E50. You're also going to need reverse Torx. You're going to need an E10, an E12, and an E14. to take the rest of the bolts out of the water pump. So you have two hose connections. You have a hose connection here, a hose connection here, the bolt that goes through the alternator, and then a whole bunch of bolts, and then the water pump should slide out. And you have to take this bolt out. Let me go ahead and get the bolts out, and we'll show you what it looks like. Alrighty, I've got all the bolts out of the water pump, and what I like to do is I like to take the new water pump and put all the bolts in where they come from. Because as you can see, these three are all the same size, but this one is a lot longer. So I like to put all the bolts back in where they belong, and I see I missed one. I have to come back and get that one out. But then the water pump should be ready to come out after I get this last bolt out. All right, now that I got all the bolts out, just take a screwdriver and start working a little bit. And now there's a wire connection here I had to disconnect, and then the water pump actually has like a C thing that goes around that sensor, so you have to pull it down around that. All right, and there we go. There is the old water pump in the metal gasket. So now what I'll do is I'll take the bolts that I put in this water pump and transfer them into this water pump, so I know they're going in the right places. So now I'll come in here and we'll clean the surface up. We'll get the new water pump installed and all put back together. All right, I think I'll just leave it at this. It's pretty straightforward and pretty easy to do. I think anybody can do it. The only problem is this tensioner. It's really nice if you have that pin to lock the tensioner back. All right, everybody, I think I'll leave it at this because I got to get on this one. Please subscribe. You can always do that in that corner there. Please give me a thumbs up if you like my automotive videos. Alrighty, well, I forgot to tell you the torque specs of the bolts. So the bolts of coolant pump, the metric 6 bolts are 10 Newton meters, and the metric 8 bolts are 25 Newton meters. And I think you'd probably want to use a 10 Newton meters also to hold the pulley onto the water pump. So there's your torque specs at the end of the video.